Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Live with Mel. Climate change in the United States is a very interesting topic. In the United States, climate change is something that is debated by citizens, by politicians, by a lot of people. Now, within the United States, we do know that some people believe that climate change is real and that immediate action needs to be taken in order to combat climate change. But we do know that there are people within the United States who believe that climate change is a hoax, that it's something that is made up. And as we're looking at climate change as a whole, we are now seeing that the United States is stepping back up and is trying to be the world leader once again when it comes to dealing with climate change. Now, today on Earth Day, April 22nd, and tomorrow, April 23rd, the United States will be hosting a virtual climate change summit. Now, this summit is going to be held virtually, and about 40 leaders were invited to this climate change summit. Now, this climate change summit that is being hosted by the White House by President Joe Biden is President Joe Biden's attempt to become the leader, for the United States to become the leader in climate change once again. Now, the way that the United States views and is handling climate change now versus how the previous administration has handled it is quite different. The previous administration did pull the United States out of the 2015 Paris Climate Agreement, but President Joe Biden has put the United States back in and is now trying to find ways to make the United States a leader once again. And this climate change summit is one of the ways that he is looking to do that. Now, he has invited 40 different leaders to come in and to discuss climate change and to set up ways that they can reduce climate change. Now, one of the key goals that they're trying to reach is limit planetary warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. This is something that all the countries that signed the Paris Agreement have been trying to do. And the United States is trying to come back into the game in climate change and basically said, listen, we are committed to doing this with you as well. And we're going to continue to put legislation in place to ensure that this happens. Now, at the beginning of the summit, President Joe Biden pledged to cut the U.S. greenhouse gas pollution in half by 2030. And then he also planned and pledged to make the U.S. power sector 100% carbon pollution free by 2035. Now, these are two huge pledges that President Joe Biden is making, and he made this in front of everyone at the virtual summit here on Earth Day. Now, again, this virtual summit can be watched by anyone. You can stream it directly from the White House, from NPR. There's different places that are streaming it. But President Joe Biden has come out and made two huge pledges in front of everyone at the summit and everyone watching. Again, these are two big pledges to cut U.S. greenhouse gases in half by 2030 and to also have the U.S. power sector 100% carbon pollution free by 2035 are two huge steps for the United States. And it looks as though many countries who are a part of this are very happy to have the United States back in the fold. Now, even though many countries, because representatives from South Africa, representatives from the UK have stated they are very happy to see the US step back up and enter into the Paris Climate Agreement, and also to see them stepping up to being the world leader again, I do know that many countries are wondering how much faith they can put in the United States. Because as you can see, every few years, we vote a new president into office. And we see with the last administration that they pulled us out of these agreements. So while President Joe Biden is making these great pledges, and while President Joe Biden is trying to put legislation in place to ensure that the United States can meet these big goals, I do wonder if other countries are wary of if the United States can do it, because once a new administration comes in, they could change it like the last administration has done. Now, while President Joe Biden and Democrats in the country are on board with making these changes and having legislation in place to make these changes, we do know that Republicans are pushing back. Republicans have vowed to fight his proposals that shift the U.S. energy sector away from coal and other fossil fuels. Republicans who traditionally like to focus on fossil fuels and continuing to use fossil fuels do not like the direction that President Joe Biden is heading. And that, again, is the direction that most countries are heading as well. They want to continue to use fossil fuels and coal because they believe that if they stop it, that it will put the United States at a disadvantage. Now, something that is very important to talk about and something that will be discussed at this summit, this virtual summit, is jobs. Now, when we talk about climate change, when we talk about switching from one type of energy to another, something that comes up time and time again is jobs. Because if we move away from fossil fuels, people in the fossil fuel industry will be losing jobs. But one of the main themes that they will be talking about at this summit change is the economic benefits of climate change and creating new jobs in this new sector. Now let's go to the comments really quickly. So Joanna says, I'm glad President Biden took that position. It's about time governments take a stand on finding solutions to climate change. Marie says, great news. I believe will happen. I will live to see that. And again, many people who do believe in climate change within the United States are very, very happy that the United States is putting itself back in the position of being a leader when it comes to climate change. This summit is one of the ways that the United States is trying to put itself back in the forefront of being the leader of climate change. But again, the US has a lot of work to do if they want to continue to be the leader, stepping back up and being the leader. Now, one of the big things that they did is they did re-enter into that 2015 climate change agreement, the Paris climate change agreements. But again, the US has a lot of work to do. And even though this administration, the Biden administration, very much wants to be the leader in climate change, when we look at what's happening within the United States, we do know that Republicans are pushing back every step of the way. And while this summit is a great step for the Biden administration to now be back in the forefront in climate change, we have to see what will happen back at home, back in the United States, because President Joe Biden can pledge to do all of these things. President Joe Biden has pledged to cut the U.S. greenhouse gas pollution in half by 2030, and he has also pledged to make the power sector 100% carbon pollution free by 2035. But that will be an impossible task if he cannot get the entire United States on board with this. And we do know that Republicans are pushing back. They're going to push back every step of the way because they want to continue to use fossil fuel and carbon as the energy sector. Now let's go to the comments really quickly. Alex says, any U.S. climate policy that ties the hands of a U.S. company and exempts China, the largest world polluter, for more than a decade, like the Paris Accord did, is useless symbolic exercise only. And again, we have to, looking at the United States, Joe Biden can make all these promises and pledges, but the entire United States has to be on board. And it's looking as though many Republicans are not. So again, it could be wildly symbolic if legislation is not put in place that gets everyone on board, because Congress has to vote for it. And right now, the way that Congress is set up, we are very much 50-50 split. Joanna says, It's a great sign as well to show the world we can still lead by taking the first steps in taking climate change seriously, not only for us, but for the world. And yes, many will lose their jobs, but new jobs will be created. This is what happens when there's progress. Now, again, whenever there's any type of shift in the world, people lose their jobs, but it can open the door for many, many more jobs. And that is something that people have been going back and forth again when we do talk about climate change. Because if legislation is put in place to ensure that these pledges are made, there's going to be lots of jobs that are lost. And those jobs are going to be in the traditional energy sector, so fossil fuel and carbon. Now, again, at this summit, one of the biggest things that they're going to be talking about, one of the key things, is the economic benefit of climate change and creating new jobs to boost the economy, but also to provide people who have lost their jobs that are in the energy sector and providing them with new jobs. Without the creation of new jobs, the climate change will not work. And again, when we look at the United States has to come together if there's going to be any type of climate change or any type of legislation of climate change. President Joe Biden has stated that he wants to be the leader when it comes to dealing with climate change. He wants to do more than any other administration. And while there is the possibility that he can do it, and as we do see that he is stepping up to be the leader and that he is stepping up to hold these summits to re-enter the Paris agreements, at the end of the day, we have to see what's going to happen within the United States. Because executive orders can only go so far. Making pledges can only go so far. Holding a summit can only go so far. Because in the United States, things have to go through Congress. And while Democrats are on board, all Democrats in Congress are on board with making these changes to climates, we do know that almost all Republicans are not on board with these changes. So when the legislation does pass through Congress, it's going to be very hard for President Joe Biden to push these legislations through because Republicans are going to push back every step of the way because they are focused on keeping these jobs and keeping these industries and keeping companies in the energy sector, the traditional energy sector, alive and well. So while this was a great step, this summit is a great step for the United States if they want to position themselves as a leader in climate change. And during this summit, which will be going on today and tomorrow, during this summit, the United States is really trying to make pledges and reinsert itself into the climate change talk. But the real challenge is going to be back at home, back in Congress, back where it comes to making legislation. Because at the end of the day, there can be no push forward. None of these pledges can be made if legislation is not made in Congress. So, guys, let me know what you think about this summit and about the U.S. trying to insert itself as the leader in climate change again. Now, again, the way that the U.S. is handling climate change is very different from the previous administration. President Joe Biden and his administration are trying to reinsert itself and make itself the leaders again, and they're doing that by re-entering agreements and changing legislation that was passed by the previous administration. So Alex says, American jobs will be lost. Chinese jobs will be gained, powered by Chinese coal-fired electricity plants. The world has to come together, not just the U.S. Republicans are powerless in this process no matter how many times you say their names. The real oppositions will be, it went away for a second. Republicans are powerless in this process no matter how many times you say their names. The real opposition will be from Democrat senators like Joe Manchin of West Virginia. And again, the reason why I keep saying Republicans is because Republicans have come out and said that they're going to push back on it. I have quotes. I'll pull them up. I'll actually post them in the comments section later. And then Jima says, this is the best way for the United States to become the leader in climate change and at the same time create new innovative jobs here. And it is true. And again, the world needs to change. China needs to make changes. Brazil needs to make changes. The UK needs to make changes. India needs to make changes. But the people who are putting out the boldest statements are the United States. And in order for the United States to make these pledges, they have to make changes with legislation. So again, Republicans are not powerless in this because of the way that Congress is set up right now. Right now, Congress is pretty much split 50-50. And it's going to be hard for either side to really make any legislation because it can really be a standstill in Congress. And then going to Jima's comments, this is the best way for the United States to become the leader in climate change. And again, they're trying to insert themselves as being the leader once again, but we will see if that will happen. Now, something else that's really important is to see how world leaders view the United States, even though they're coming back. Because again, every 4 to 8 years, there's a new administration coming into the White House. And it's hard to believe that the United States will hold any kind of pledge because as we've seen with the last administration and this administration, their views on climate change were completely different. And if every 4 to 8 years, there's a massive shift, there's no way that any pledge any American president makes can be held. So we'll see how the other countries view that as well. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in and watching Live with Mel. Again, I come live every single Monday through Thursday to talk to you guys about current events. And I love that you guys continue to write in and share your opinions because your opinions matter. Whether you agree with me or whether you disagree with me, it's important that we have these conversations. These conversations are extremely important to have. If you agree with me, that's great. Go ahead and write in. If you disagree with me, even better. Go ahead and continue to write in because the more that we have these conversations peacefully, the way that we can move forward as a country. And then Jima says, we have to unite in order to get this pledge done. And that is the only way that we're going to get this pledge done. And then Wade says, what's up? Anyway, so Wade is one of my co-hosts for the Power Hour panel talk that happens every single Tuesday night. So check it out. It gets wild. And talking about people who don't agree, if you watch us on the Power Hour panel talk, we all come from different political ideologies, but we come together and we have the conversations. And most of the time we don't agree, but we do end up having the conversation. So what's up, Wade? And then no problem. Thank you, Mel, for keeping us well informed. I do try and keep you guys informed. I'm bringing the facts. I try to hold my opinion back, but it is hard sometimes to hold opinions back when discussing things because we all have biases. But I do try to bring you the information so you guys can tell me what your opinions are and we can continue to have the conversations. Because at the end of the day, it's important to have these conversations. Your voice matters, your opinion matters, and this is an open space where we can talk about it peacefully and have the conversations. Whether we agree or not, it's important that we continue to talk. So guys, thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to talking to you guys on Monday as well. Have a great weekend, guys, and whether you're watching this live or whether you're catching this later, go ahead and let me know what you think in the comment section below about this virtual summit that's happening, but also about climate change in general. What are your thoughts about climate change, and where do you think the United States should position itself when it comes to climate change? All right, guys, have a great day, and I will see everyone bright and early Monday morning. Have a great day, guys.